welcome back to my podcast, Hosting Heaven. My name is Gabrielle Burton, and I am a licensed Christian marriage and family therapist and author of the book, The Ultimate Guide to Becoming a Gold Digger, Discovering the Hidden Treasures Within. It's a book that combines biblical and mental health principles, and you can get your copy in the link below. Today, I am joined again with my friend Kelsey.
Hello.
Today, I'm really excited because we're actually going to talk about sex, and we're going to talk about sex, intimacy, purity culture, and all of that. So just for a little background, Kelsey is a pastor's kid, grew up in the church, and we're just kind of talk a little bit more about what that was like and just kind of, some things that you kind of experienced and took away, and also maybe just have the sex talk that you needed as a kid.
Yeah. I think that if I was going to kind of encompass my experience with spiritual, sexual conversations, if that's a weird phrase, that's kind of really like everybody's like, ooh, how do we talk about
here's the
sex biblically?
Well, actually, no, though. It's not weird. Okay,
it shouldn't be weird.
It shouldn't be weird because sexuality and spirituality are totally intertwined. We actually go back to Genesis with Adam and Eve. Before, it was actually just Adam and Eve and God. There was no separation between them. But what actually created the separation was when sin entered into the picture, when they ate from the tree of knowledge, and then the very first thing that happened was they hid because they knew.
All of a sudden, we now have private parts that can't be shown.
Exactly right. And then, yes, there were things that were created to cover their genitals, right? So sexuality and spirituality are actually very interconnected because that is where God really wants to be with us, to be naked and unashamed before Him. And when sin entered into the picture, that is where we become shameful. So I would say that's probably the root of why there is so much shame around sexuality in the church. The enemy has tried to distort it because, sex is an act of worship, right? And when we are doing that, like God created sex, He says it is good, Right. And so, anyways, that's why.
Well, and I'm not the person who thinks that every person in the whole world needs to have sex someday. I think people who want to stay single, awesome for you. That's amazing. I don't think it is the ultimate experience. I think we pedestal it. We've talked about it when we talked about our other discussion. Like we do these American things, right? In America, we definitely put sexual experiences on a pedestal. We do the same thing in church with this topic. And so growing up, I would say that I think my parents did a pretty good job being open with us. Mom and dad started conversations with us earlier probably than their peers. But I think for me, the piece that went a little awry, also my mom and dad were high school sweethearts. So they were kind of the typical football player, cheerleader, fell in love, got married, right? And so they have this really special story and experience that they kind of grew up together and they learned life together. And they learned really sexuality together. They were just each other's first and only. They were each other's experience in growing up in general, in all of the arenas. And so I think they did a lot of good things with us, but I think the thing that blindsided them, and my sister and I have had conversations with them about this now as adults, is I don't think they quite understood the messages we were getting in what's now been dubbed as purity culture in youth group, in these things. And as adults now, we've had conversations where they're like, where did you get that? Like, how did that get translated down into your belief system about sexuality? And they were also coming out of a generation or time where they were actually on the edge. They were edgy with how much they told us. And really, my sister and I now go way farther, right, with our kids. But I would say that the messages sent to me, I was a pretty good teenager. I really kind of worked hard to give God my yes, tried to, I had a relationship with God and tried to check all the boxes, if that kind of makes sense. And so I was told that what that looked like was don't have sex till you get married, and then once you get married, it's amazing. And if I could just summarize it in a sentence,
that was what you were taught in the church.
Okay. Youth group, youth camp, every time you did an abstinence pledge or in anything, it was really about, don't have sex till you're married. And then it was almost but in that moment, this switch is going to flip and this amazing thing that's supposed to be spiritual and biblical and love, it's just going to happen.
It's going to pop off.
Fireworks or anything. I think the bummer, and definitely there were conversations about pornography, and we shouldn't be addicted to pornography and all these things, but it was all within that context of don't have sex till you're married. And then when you get married, boom. And then, that was also the season where it's like being a peach, and every time you get touched, but now the peach is trashed for all eternity.
Wow.
Right? And so there were these messages, or the flower that gets its petals pulled off. Right? So there were these visuals too that got used in church a lot that pretty much made you go, well, crap, I screwed up, and apparently I'm never going to be the same, so what's the point in trying? I wasn't that person, but I stood beside a million friends who they're like, well, now my peach is bruised.
So we have to talk about that. We have to go there for a second, because what that does to people's identity and what that does to your self-worth, really, it just destroys you.
Yeah.
And it's this idea where you have to strive or, restrain or all these different things, which really can also then, I think, create a sense of lacking self-trust as well. That's something that I have seen a lot. I mean, I've been doing therapy with Christians for the past 10 years, and I have just seen, I love Christians, but we can be some of the most underdeveloped sexually people, because there is such a, I can't talk about that. I can't desire sex. I can't look at these things. I can't even be around someone who's a temptation, right? And there's all these things.
I have like 1,000 things I want to say right now.
Just so sad. I'm like, what? First of all, like, it is normal for your body to respond, right? It is normal for you to find yourself attracted to someone. Like, it is normal for your body to respond. That is normal, and you don't want to turn that off. But what I have seen happen a lot with a lot of Christians, where it's like you said, the switch, right? Sex is bad, 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 to all of a sudden you're married, sex is great. Does not happen like that.
No.
It does not happen like that.
Because God forbid we all talk about what arousal actually is. I mean, like, what is that?
What is arousal?
It doesn't happen for women, right? We're just emotional, not physical.
Right.
I also think one of the biggest words that got missed, and I don't think it was intentional, I think it just, so much emphasis got put on abstinence. Nobody talked about consent.
Wow.
And nobody talked about, even when you're married, there should be consent. This is not like, now that you're married, you have full access to my body whenever you want it.
Wow.
And I would say one of the ways that I've changed my conversations with my kids, and I know if this is gonna like mess some people up, and I'm sorry, but it's working for us right now, is we definitely have a lot of conversation about consensual, like what is consent, what does that look like? But we start having it right from the beginning. How do you be consensual with holding hands? How do you be consensual, like we raised our boys? My husband has been amazing in this journey, because he was not as heavily raised in purity culture as we went to the same church, we grew up together, whatever, but I was just in church services a lot more than him. Yeah. And he lived a bit of a different life, maybe a little bit of a side track, not always following God's path. What's interesting is I would say he came out with a much better, more biblical view of sex than I did. See, not living that path. And we've talked about, like, I mentioned to you, like, some amazing research from Sheila Gregory, where she's found that evangelical women actually have more pain during sex.
So the internalized shame, and also the so what happens also, like, with abuse and trauma and things like that, we also disconnect or disassociate from our bodies. I was actually having a conversation with my mom the other day about this, and just without going into too many details of my story, my dad was inappropriate with me, in certain ways, where he created a very just sexually inappropriate environment. Nothing like penetrative, but just very, inappropriate. Yeah. And he would kind of make these comments about, like, no man's ever going to want to marry you because you don't know how to be affectionate. And just like some of the touch that he would do just didn't feel comfortable to my body, and I would kind of tense up and things like that. But
I'm sorry.
Thank you. Yeah. And so he just kind of it was almost like I had this like programming of something's wrong with me. Like, I'm broken. Yeah. Because like it was, my body almost kind of connected sex to affection. And so then I actually put myself, when I was like 18, I put myself in a situation where I wanted to prove to myself that I wasn't broken. And so I went and like met this guy, and I didn't want to have an emotional connection with him, but I wanted to like prove to myself that like I could do the thing, right? I can have this connection with this person. And I totally tried to disconnect myself. We didn't have sex, but like I tried to like explore, and I just remember being so disconnected, where I was like telling myself, don't enjoy it, don't like it, he's telling you lies. Like, I was just telling myself all these different things because I was disconnecting because of trauma, but I was also like thinking like, well, if I can allow my body to encounter this experience, then I'm experiencing affection. I'm experiencing affection.
But I think we've done that in the church. We've made that disconnect like right away. We've said these things that are total lies. Women are emotional, men are physical. Like, men are visually aroused, women are emotionally aroused. Yeah. I fully disagree. And actually, my husband is probably the one who's talked me out of those viewpoints. Men get to a point where they can't stop themselves.
Yeah.
Men are just all these things.
Yep.
And I'm so grateful for my husband because we raise our boys the way we do, probably because of him.
Yeah.
He's like, there is never a moment that I cannot stop myself.
Mm-hmm.
There is never a moment that I cannot respect you.
That's right.
There is never a moment, and our boys are so great. Our oldest is a boyfriend, and he has a girlfriend. Aww. And he is very intentional about, was there anything I did that made you uncomfortable? Are you okay if we hold hands?
Yeah.
And if she says, I don't want to snuggle right now, or he's like, that's okay, and he doesn't need to get all butthurt and be manipulative with her about it.
No.
But I would say some things that we've really changed our verbiage. I just had a conversation with my daughter the other day. She has a boyfriend. We're exploring that space. But we started talking about the things that I need her to understand to be in a healthy relationship.
Yeah.
And I said, do I want you to have sex before you get married? No. Would I love for you to save that for marriage? Yes. And do I think that's what God wants for you? Yes. And do I think you should go from 0 to 120 in one night? No.
Yeah.
But then we talked about, but arousal is a journey.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen in one night on your wedding night, and it takes 45 minutes for a woman. Like, that is not what arousal is. Arousal is this relational connection and journey that you have with another person. And we started talking about, it does feel good to hold somebody's hand. It does feel good when you kiss. It does feel, and we're, working through these little phases. And we also, I've told my kids 100 times, because I think that was also a message sent to me, is everybody sitting in here in church telling you to be abstinent, they were abstinent too. So the reality is, and I just sat with my babies and I said, let's just be really blunt. Yeah. Okay. And I think the pressure of that actually made it worse. And then if you mess up once, you're just like, well, screw it. I'm totally screwed now. I can't, whatever. And I just told my babies, I'm like, do you see this church service right now? You see these hundreds of people, thousands of people? I said 90 to 97% of them had sex outside of marriage. Yep. I said, just statistically from the conversations that I've had with people, I'm making a swag for you. Yeah. I said, do I think that God wants you to wait? Yes. Are there ramifications when you don't? Yes. Does God have a reason why? Yes. And let's not heap a bunch of shame on this before you've even started walking this journey. Totally. Let's just be really honest about the thing we're getting ready to walk out. And let's stop talking so much about checking the boxes, because we all need to define this thing. Right. And I would tell you, and I mentioned before, Sheila Gregory, she has the Bare Marriage podcast. She so changed my life. And she helped me go from when I was married the first time, I didn't have sex before I got married. Yeah. And switch was supposed to flip. Yeah. And I defined everything forward as love. Because that was biblical, right? Well, I got married at 18 and I was widowed by 21. Wow. And so in 2.5 years of being married, I had defined this experience as love. When the reality is, then I went into the rest of my adulthood, married my husband now, who we were childhood friends. He's amazing. He's the most just kind, gentle. I get to make all the choices that I want to make in my life. He's such an amazing partner. But I remember we were about 10 years into our marriage, and we're super nature junkies, and so we're out on a walk, out in the woods, and Josh was like, I'm super happy, and I don't need anything to change. He's like, I think you and Jesus have some things you need to talk about with sex. And I don't really get mad. I'm not irritable. Josh doesn't really tick me off much. And I was ticked. Later, I realized I'm ticked because I had experienced what I felt like was so much pressure to perform and give and do in marriage. One that, now you just want more from me? And he said it again. He's like, I don't need a thing different. Yeah. I am super happy. He's like, but Kelsey, I think there's something going on that you and God need to talk about. And I ran across Sheila Gregory and a million other resources that helped me start unwinding all the things we say in Christian American culture that are so wrong. They're so wrong. And I remember saying some of these things out loud to my husband, who I mentioned wasn't really raised in pure, and he's like, well, that's stupid. And I'm like, this is biblical, babe. This is biblical. Let me show you a verse or something. He goes, no, but the Bible also says this thing. My husband's also an avid reader of the Bible, which I love, because then he spits verses back at me in ways that are not like every sermon you've ever heard, right? Yeah. And I'm like, holy goodness, you have a bit of a point there, right? I started trashing all of my sexual theology. Wow. And we started going through these experiences where we started talking through, what does God really intend? And what does this really look like? And if we took sex off the pedestal, if sex was not the ultimate experience, right? But if our relationship and our intimacy was the ultimate experience. That's right. And if there was no manipulation or coercion or pressure, if it wasn't like, guys have to have it because they're, and actually I'm so devastated with what we're doing to boys. I could be like all talking about the girls' experience, and sure, I went through some of that, but now I'm raising 2 boys. So I have 3 teenagers, 2 of them are boys. And I remember like having all these feelings, and my husband was like, no, we're not teaching our boys that, because I'm like, how do I rebound from this, right? How do I raise kids now?
Well, and I think what you're talking about is like the pendulum, right?
Yes.
The big extremes. And I think it's like either all sex is all bad, or, you know, go over here and it's like, do whatever you want and just explore, right? And somewhere in the middle, I think is really important and healthy. And what I like what you talk about doing with your kids is like teaching them, one, touch and consensual touch. And that is all a part of arousal. It's a slow build up. It's okay. That's
okay that it takes years.
Yeah. And it's
it's a whole journey.
Yeah. And I, you know, I've definitely, you know, I've actually had some conversations with people about this as well, where there was this idea of like, okay, we can't even kiss before we get married, you know, like we can't do any of this. And there is this sense of like lacking in self-trust and feeling like you don't have self-control. And it doesn't go from turned off to all of a sudden now we're together. No, because your body has like conditioned that this is bad, sex is bad. What it can also do to the other person, if you have a partner and, you know, there is some desire or what have you, and they maybe want to lean in, but you're so closed off, it can make them feel like they're being rejected, and it's very hurtful. But there's something called the Madonna whore complex. And this happens a lot in Christian environments where when we're doing the whole purity culture thing, we're waiting until marriage, all of that. And I'm not knocking it. I think really what people have to do, again, it's well, like I talked about in the last episode, rules without revelation equals resentment, which can look like rebellion.
Yeah.
You have to have a revelation as to why this is the rule for you. Because if you don't, you're going to be resentful and there's going to be all kinds of rebellion going on. And so the Madonna whore complex is basically where men will put women in 2 different categories. They'll either put them in the Madonna category, where she is this sweet, innocent, virginal girl. She is going to be the mother of their children and their wife, and she's just so angelic and innocent and all of that. And then there's the whore, and that is the woman that they have all these like lustful desires. She is the one that they want to have all this like just like ravenous sex with, and
God forbid they're the same one.
Right. And so there is a split that happens, right?
Yes.
Because I have seen happen so many times is like what has kept men being able to be pure until marriage is they are either consuming pornography, they are sleeping with prostitutes, whatever that looks like. And so, you know, and they're also not having, some of these couples are not having deep conversations about sexuality. They're not talking about like their likes, their dislikes. If the woman doesn't know much about her body, if she doesn't know, if she's not experienced, right? She's just this innocent girl. And so what happens is this guy is, you know, having all these experiences or what have you outside of this person that he's going to be marrying.
Yeah.
Right. And then they get married and she's like, okay, I'm ready. And he doesn't actually see her in that sexual light. Because he has started to see sex as this bad thing. It's this dirty, nasty thing, right? And I can't do that to you because you're just so pure and innocent and white and you're just a virgin. Meanwhile, she's being completely rejected. She's feeling completely like unwanted, right? And he's out here doing all these things with all these other women or consuming pornography, which is just absolutely terrible, right? So then, you know, and I've seen experiences where the woman then goes, well, what do I have to do to like get you to desire me? Do I need to join you in this? Do we need to open our marriage? Well, just absolutely the enemy having a foothold in there, right? And
what you're talking about just makes me think of like, it's my job as a woman to keep him on the straight
and
narrow.
Part. And then, well, and we get, I mean, even in the, you know, women are taught, oh, dress modestly, don't cause them into stumble and fall. We're teaching men that they don't have self-control.
Yes! And that's exactly what I'm thinking. The whole time you've been thinking this, saying this, is here's the risk of that, though, is that the second you get married, that means you don't have to have self-control and you can do whatever to that woman that you want.
Right.
And then how many Christian marriages behind the scenes are having, again, let's go to this statistic that evangelical women have more sexual pain. Mm-hmm. Okay, that's a physiological response to a problem we're creating in the church. And I think one of the things I've chosen to do differently with my kids is we started talking about sexuality like as soon as they could talk. Mm-hmm. Not about sex. Mm-hmm. Just about you're a boy and you're a girl.
Yeah,
and let's talk about sexuality.
Yeah.
And my boys in middle school will be the first ones to be like, hey, let me hand you my sweater because I noticed you have blood on the back of your pants. I got you. Like, we actually just had a conversation last night about toxic shock syndrome and what happens when you leave a tampon in too long. And sometimes we think like, oh, we'll just have the sex talk. If you are waiting to have the sex talk, you've already waited too long.
That's right.
You've got to start talking about just you don't, even if you decide to be single and you stay abstinent, you still have sexuality.
Yeah.
Like, we don't, everything is not exclusive from each other. And if we can have that healthy conversation first, all of these then more sexual encounter conversations become so much easier.
Yes. And there's so many things that go into how to express your sexuality too, to where it's not just about sex. And I think that is the problem that the church also does too. It's like kind of almost turn off all sexuality, all ways in expressing yourself, and then just leave all of that to just sex, right? But there are ways to still be connected to your body and to explore your sexuality and your sensuality. I think something that I had to go through a couple of years ago, I was just kind of really like upset with the church and how there was just so much condemnation around that. And I'm like, Christians can be sexy, okay? We can be sexy and holy. But I had to go through a time where I was really exploring my sensuality, which means my senses, and allowing myself to just feel my body. I'm not going out and having sex with anybody, but it's just like allowing myself to take up space and express myself, because that is a part of just being a child of God, our sexuality and our sensuality. And so I would be mindful of like how my body felt in certain fabrics. And I was like, ooh, I love the way that like, velvet feels on my skin. Or I love the way that this aroma smells on my body. Or I love like when I straighten my hair and I just love how soft it feels and how it feels on my skin. Or
if you think about the Song of Solomon.
Yeah.
How many of these metaphors did he use? And, and I think that's when I talk to my kids about like arousal should take years.
Yeah.
Like I hope that you go through experience, and you may or may not ever have sex someday, and like whatever, if you get married or all of those things. But there's something like, and the other thing is, in the same way that we don't want our kids to be pulled into certain non-Christian narratives, we also can create boxes where we expect our kids to live in our specific narratives. Yeah. And I remember growing up with a friend who was a pastor's kid, and he was very flamboyant, straight as straight gets. Okay. But so flamboyant. And the church just could not
figure out how
to look a certain way and act a certain way. Yeah. God forbid if he was the best person to go shopping with. He was a blast. He loved to have a merce. That was totally his jam. Yeah. But he wasn't gay. Yeah. And so I also think like we were talking previously in our other session about just what it looks like to just walk towards God. Yeah. This is not me saying that I'm compromising a sexual ethic. This is not me buying into a byline. This is not me saying any of those things. But it is me saying we gotta be careful about how much of this is just American.
That part.
And then who am I in Christ?
Yeah.
Who did Christ make me? Yeah. And I constantly say this phrase to God, if this is the way that I can bring you the most glory, then use me. Yeah. Right? And I have a very sporty girl. She's not super flu-flu-y. She's very sporty. And I don't mind letting her lean into that. Yeah. And I don't need to dress her a certain way or, compose her a certain way or force her into makeup and hairdos and different things when, to be honest, Mom, I want my straight hair and I want a makeup face. And I'm good.
We are born sex but not gendered, right? And I think that's a big part of what's going on nowadays, where it's this whole, like, how do you identify all things, right? Well, we are born biologically male or female. That's just what it is, right? There are people who are born with both parts. That does happen. Correct. Right? That does happen. We are born sexed, but not gendered. Gendered is actually masculine, feminine. That is actually how we would define gender. And the masculine and feminine, that is socially constructed. That is how
right there.
Socially constructed. And it tells you like women are supposed to be this, and this is how, when girls are born, you give them pink. When boys are born, you give them blue, right? And I think that's what really is affecting, I think, a lot of our society. And so now there's so much of a pushback of like, gender neutral, this, that, and the other, which I can understand that to an extent. Let them express themselves however they want to express themselves. As a parent, it's your job to understand your kid. Tell me who you are. Let me learn who you are. Not let me tell you who you need to be. Yeah. I want to learn who you are.
And more deeply than that, I want to know who God made you.
Yeah.
I want to unlock and uncover what did God put in you. Yeah. So that the moment I held you in my hands for the very first time and went, oh my gosh, you're an entire human being. Yeah. Like you have everything you need. Yeah. To be a whole person right now. God has put all of that in you, in my little hands right here. I just want to get to know that. Yeah. I want to cultivate that. Yeah. And I think yes, God's word is innate, and yes, I am never going to be like, I know that that's in conflict with God's word, but I'm still going to believe it. No, I love God's word. I also love the revelation the Holy Spirit gives us as we walk out that journey with God and His Word.
So good. I love that. And that is the intimacy part of it, right? Because I think at the end of the day, what all this comes down to, sexuality, all of that, it's about being intimate with the Father and allowing Him to also allow you to experience yourself in the way that He created you to be. How you uniquely express yourself, how you connect with other people, how you show love and affection, platonically and romantically, right? How you just emote and how you get your needs met and all that type of thing, and how you show up and show love for others. And I think that that's a big thing that I think our society is actually desiring so much more, especially in the church. We put sex on this pedestal. We're like, oh, sex is it's all the rage. What we're actually desiring more is, I think, intimacy. We are desiring for people to truly see us, and intimacy is into me, you see. You see, like, just the inner workings of my being. You see, my quirks and my vulnerabilities and all of that, and you still love me. And in the church, I think that there is a lot of shame where the church hasn't always created such a safe space to be able to talk about those types of things that we would like for other people to, well, I don't know if we would like for people to know that, right? We are taught to kind of hide it and keep it close to our chest, but if there were spaces where we're able to talk about things that we generally keep to ourselves, and someone goes, oh, I already knew that about you, or I didn't know that about you, and I love that. That makes you more interesting to me. That, I think, would help us feel a lot more safe to just be who we truly are.
And safe to, figure it out.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the bummers about, even if we're really progressive Christians, and we believe that everyone's in process, and we're going to give them the space to do that. It's but for some reason, we're not allowed to be in process sexually. As we're trying to walk that out and figure that out with Christ. And we're human beings. We're going to make mistakes. We are going to stumble and fall. We're not going to make the right decision all the time. Even if we're trying to walk it well. We are still going to screw up. And I think you kind of mentioned at the very beginning of this session, what sex talk do you wish you would have gotten? I wish somebody would have said to me, there are seasons of abstinence in marriage. I wish somebody would have said, when you have a baby, typically you're going to go a while, and you should, without having sex. You're going to get older, elderly couples who live together and they're not doing it. And again, I'm married to a man right now who is beautiful. He's absolutely I had severe back pain for a while. Some seasons of abstinence happened there. We've had 3 kids. There have been some seasons of abstinence. But our marriage isn't measured on how many times we have sex a week. And what's crazy is I remember growing up and reading books as I was getting ready to get married the first time. And I remember this statistic that got quoted of healthy couples have sex 3.5 times a week. And so in my head, this was what healthy looked like. And in my first marriage, this was some elusive, weird thing that I think I was always trying to chase, and it was unhealthy in 1,000 ways. But now, with my husband, the depth of intimacy and the depth of physical experience is man, we could do that once in a whole month, and shoot, that blew my socks off.
I love that.
And so it's already also talking to our kids about your quality of relationship should not be measured by a number of sexual PIV encounters. The quality of your relationship should be measured by conversation and intimacy and connection and grit and endurance and support, and the seasons where we ebb and flow, where I'm giving a little more this season because you need me, and you're giving a little more in that season because I need you, and I don't mean sexually. Right? It's sex to me has become, and I'm not saying I'm an expert, I'm just talking from my own personal experience, it's become the overflow of the gift that my husband is to me. And instead of it being the measuring stick of how good our marriage is or isn't doing, which I think is so dang dangerous, it is now the overflow. It's the whipped cream on top of the sundae that just shows how great it is. And it doesn't have to be something I strive after anymore. Now it's just a beautiful thing that gets to occur because I'm married to an incredible human being.
I love that. It's kind of like how baptism is. It's an outward expression
of an
inner confession. And that's what sex is, right? It's an outward expression of an inner confession of how I really truly feel. And it's so important to develop those foundations in a relationship because, like you said, there are so many seasons and times where you're not going to have sex. And if sex is what's keeping you together, you're not going to make it through those times when you can't.
And if you need to break up because you're not having sex, I have some questions for you.
Exactly. And I think that this is what I've seen with a lot of, young Christian couples that really rush to the altar to get married because they wanted to have guilt-free sex. You didn't spend enough time getting to know this person, right? To really see who they are and seeing if this is someone that you really truly, you haven't seen enough of their character, right?
Yeah.
And you rush to the altar to get married so you can have guilt-free sex. Well, there's going to be a lot of challenges you're going to have because there are going to be times where you just don't feel it, right? There are going to be times, where it's just not happening. And can we enjoy each other's company? And can we are we friends?
And when we get old and frail and all those things aren't working as well as they used to work, can we still have an amazing relationship?
That's right.
And I think too, when sex is the outward expression, you said, this amazing intimate relationship, it's a lot more fun to go. Holding hands with you is really nice because I'm not worried about what signal it is or isn't sending about what has to happen next.
Yeah.
Or just snuggling naked under the covers while we watch NCIS episodes because we're total nerds and just hiding from the kids in our bedroom and having doesn't mean it needs to lead to anything.
Right.
And when we do have those mind-blowing moments, it's that's because I said yes and I'm up for it and you're up for it and in a jokingly way, the stars aligned, or whatever. But all because each one of those moments becomes so much more enjoyable because we got to have all of these amazing choices and experiences along the way. And again, sex isn't our measuring stick of success.
Yeah.
What does success look like and how are you going to measure it? In my first marriage, I was taught to measure success based on how many times we were having sex.
Wow. And that's
and
all
I will tell you, that was jacked up.
Yeah.
It was a mess. It was terrible. It had a million problems. But then I married somebody whose success wasn't about that for him. And I will say that I messed it up in the first 10 years. There were so many things about when Josh and I got married, I'm I'm going to help him mature. I think but really I would say he's taught me so much more than I've probably ever taught him.
Yeah.
And then after 10 years, God and I spent 6 months to a year journaling every day. And I dedicated multiple hours a day to walking out this new understanding of what God really meant and created in this whole thing called sexuality and intimacy. And he wrecked my world. He totally wrecked my world. And all of a sudden I realized I was still somewhat measuring the success of my relationship based on some physical intimacy metric.
Yeah.
And God and Josh messed me up and helped me learn how to measure success so much better.
I love that.
Which was cool because it was at my fingertips the entire time. For 10 years, that potential experience was at my fingertips.
Yeah.
But I was rejecting it because I had been taught that this was success.
Yeah.
And in a beautifully patient way, my husband walked that right beside God as they held my hand through that journey. And he was beautifully kind and patient. And I think that's the other thing is I'm people who feel I don't know if I'm attracted to my partner anymore. We're not having enough sex. I just feel I have so many more questions for you because I'm what's your measuring stick for success?
Well, yeah, and it was really powerful. For one thing that you said, it made me think about the importance of being with the right person, right? Because you had such a totally different experience with your first husband, not a great experience whatsoever, and to where you are now and how beautiful it is. And so I think that for most important is that you are with the right person and the right partner. And I think that there can be some beauty in waiting to have sex, and sensing, making sure that you're having these deep conversations and making sure that you are, really just getting to know this person before just deciding okay, we got chemistry, let's just hurry up and get married. I'm curious, and you can share if you want to or not, did you guys wait to get married to have sex or no? You and Josh?
We did not have sex before we got married.
You did not?
We did way less physically than my first husband and I said to me. He said, I have not done this right in the past, but you were really important to me and I'm doing this right.
Come on. So you guys dated how long before you got married?
So Josh and I have known each other our whole lives.
Yep.
And I will say dating that time was a whole different experience because I had been sexually active before. I kind of knew there are these other things.
Yeah.
Right? Not that I'm saying that happened really well or per se healthily, but once your body kind of was oh, okay.
Yeah.
And so was it harder, different, and I was married to a much sexually more kind. I was marrying a much kinder person in that zone.
Yeah.
But we did wait. We dated for I think like 6 to 9 months.
Okay.
And Josh was on deployment for part of that. Like, I'm not gonna
so that helped.
whatever. That definitely was a benefit. But marriage for us had nothing to do with wanting to have sex because we'd known each other for a really long time.
Yeah. You bring a good point because, well, for one, you guys already had some history together. You already knew each other. But then, yeah, it wasn't about the sex. So this is why I think your marriage works really well, is because you had a foundation of just loving each other and supporting each other. The sex wasn't the glue of the relationship.
No.
You waited until, which is a beautiful way to do it, right? Because you already had sex prior.
And can I also just say,
yeah,
Josh had sex outside of marriage with
uh-huh.
other people, and he would not mind me sharing that whatsoever.
Yeah.
So, like, I'm not saying you have to wait to have sex until you get married to be able to have a great marriage.
I think that's beautiful, though, because it's like you guys didn't do it, quote unquote, perfectly the first time around, but like the way that you guys were able to do this, because I dated guys in the past who were way sexually experienced. Just a little full disclosure, I have not had sex yet, and so done other things, but I'm still waiting. And I remember, because I grew up in the church, and the church was like, don't have sex, y'all, all this type of stuff. And so I had this thing of like, oh my gosh, if we kiss, we're gonna have sex. And I remember feeling that like worried, like, oh my gosh, it's gonna go from zero, like, you're pregnant, you know what I mean? And so I remember like dating these guys who had more sexual experience, who actually had more restraint than I did, because they had already experienced it. They had already been out there, they already tried it, and they respected me so much. And every guy that I have dated has respected me so much to not push that boundary. But we have deep, intimate connections because we have more conversations, because we build friendships, because we spend time together and we're cultivating that connection. And they'll say things like, no, I don't need to have sex. Like, this is great. And it's funny how that's really what people are desiring and looking for, is that intimacy. The sex is the cherry on top, right? And so I say all of that to say how beautiful it is that you guys have had those experiences, and you realize, like, yeah, sex is not the end all be all. It is just being able to have someone that I genuinely care about. I really love. I want to get to know more about you and all of that, and how that has then, transformed into your marriage. And the safety is important as well.
Yes. And I think, I'm just thinking about people who might be watching this and going, oh yeah, okay, like, I'm glad that it doesn't have to be all that for you. Like, let me just say, my dude can rock my socks off.
She's like, I'm very happy.
I'm not saying that to say that, like, oh, I have something to brag about. I think what I'm trying to say is, like, to try to break it down to, when I got married the first time, it was a switch flip, and it's supposed to just be amazing. Yeah. And he was told the same story I was. Mm-hmm. And the reality is, fast forward a decade and a half, and God and I are now redefining my entire understanding. And I was actually, you're gonna laugh hysterically. Again, Sheila Gregory, I cannot talk about her enough, and she's connected to so many other resources. But she had a class on orgasms.
Okay.
It's just like an e-course. You don't have to be in it with anybody. It's not weird. Yeah. But I was like, okay, I'm going to take it and see, what am I not understanding here? I'm an avid learner. I'm a junkie for learning new things. And as I'm taking it, there was this extra little piece on marital rape.
Okay.
And I was like, I don't really need that, but I'm going to watch it in case it helps one of my friends or something someday. And I'm watching this thing about marital rape, and it starts defining this. And I'm a minute in, 2 minutes in, and it hits me. Oh my God, that was me. And I'm going to give a lot of grace to my first husband, who has passed away now and is not with us, and just say we were both sold the same story. But I would also say that, frequency was there, and the outside, based on what everyone told us and what we were telling everyone else, this was supposed to be the most incredible relationship. And yet it was coercive, it was manipulative, it was all, it was in no way consensual, valuable, intimate. And I'm not sitting here and saying, I'm so much happier now because I'm a prude and I don't have sex and my husband's just really nice to me. Mm-hmm. What I'm saying is, I don't need to measure my life on that anymore, because now I get to be in a zone where I feel ultimately respected, and ultimately in control of my own body, and ultimately partnered with someone who takes me good, bad, and ugly, who I take them good, bad, and ugly, who, as we're getting older and our bodies are changing, or while we were having babies, or as all the crazy things happened in those years too, every year and the next year and the next year, we learn more cool things about each other, even physically, that are amazing and mind-blowing. And we come up against other seasons where we're like, there's going to be a dry spell for a little bit, and that's okay, because what we have underneath sustains all of that. Yeah. And so, I want to be cautious to say, I think that there might be people watching this who are like, but I like being turned on and I like sexual experiences. Cool. That's amazing. And I'm not anti that or saying I don't have that. I'm just simply saying we don't need to measure it by the sexual experience. We can measure it by the actual relationship.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. And the truth is, like, we can't go that deep with people until we learn how to connect deeply with God and being able to know more about ourselves. What do we like? How do we need to be treated? How do we deserve to be loved? Because I think a lot of times if we don't know that, we're going to just put up with any type of treatment, we think, and we're just trying to, obey and submit and all that type of stuff. And like, God wants you to have the best. He wants you to have a great marriage, great relationships, and all of that.
And Josh and I love defining, like, hey, this is a no-go for me. No problem.
As you should, because sex is all about communication too.
Yeah, and I think too is in everything else, Josh and I talk about this a lot just in our lives. Yeah. Obedience is the ultimate thing for us. Yeah. And I need to be obedient to what God's asking of me. So I'm not seeking after my next decision by trying to figure out what Josh wants. Yeah. I'm seeking after my next decision by going, God, how do you help turn me into the best version of myself? And in that journey, especially when he's walking the same journey, that connects us in incredible new ways, because God sure knows a whole lot more about him than he even knows about himself. God knows more about me than I know about myself. Yeah. And I think too, I think people can have really healthy marriages who don't know Jesus. Yeah. But I think that when we do know Jesus and we're chasing after a creator, wow, do we have an opportunity to have something really special with each other? Yeah, I love that.
Well, last bit, what would you say to someone who is single, like myself, waiting, and they're, trying to navigate this dating landscape in the day and age that we have? We have social media. There's just so many things that I think sometimes creates a tough time for people to really connect and just really go into that space. Like, what would you recommend?
Yeah, I think I would say two things, and one of them I say to my kids already. Like, who has God made you to be? Are you chasing a relationship because, honestly, in the church, kind of the ultimate is let's get married and have kids? Yeah. Because we have marriage conferences and we have things for, like, or is single okay? Yeah. And are you happy? Or maybe just okay for a season? Yeah. And I tell my kids all the time, like, just because Dad and I are married and this is the life we chose, please don't think that this is success.
I love that.
There's so many versions of who God might be asking you to be. Yeah. And that doesn't mean that you're settling or missing out. Yeah. So please, like, for those of you chasing relationships, just take a minute to, like, go, like, but what's God really asking? Yeah. Because you can be very happy, the most happy, walking the path God recommends for you. The second thing I think I would say, so, like, I don't think single is a bad word. Yeah. I think single is a beautiful thing. Totally. The second thing that and that's biblical. Yeah.
Jesus was single.
Jesus was single.
Paul even said, listen, I'm trying to save you from heartache.
And I will tell you what, you're going to have a family, you're going to have a spouse, you better make that your primary ministry. Like, there's a capacity that has to go there, and you better put it there.
Because when you're single, it is a gift. Like, you are all about your Father's business. And I will say I'm happily single. Happily single. I just feel like I have a very full life. Would love to meet someone one day if that's what God has for me.
The second thing I would say, and this is going to sound weird because it's not sexual whatsoever, or even relational maybe, the thing that I've told my kids since they were little, and I decided really right off the bat when I became a mom, is that if I can teach my kids one thing, just one, like if I fail at everything, but I can only succeed at one thing before they graduate, before they kind of, go out on that adulting journey on their own, is that they know God's voice. Yeah, maybe not even that they are saved. Yeah. There are a lot of great people out there. Yeah. Don't be jaded that there are no good men or there are no good women, because that's not true. Right. There are a lot of really great ones. And there are a lot of ones that look great, but they're not. Yeah. And so I would just say, just cultivate your relationship with the Holy Spirit, cultivate your discernment, cultivate your obedience, and then just stay really grounded in your faith and your hope. I love that God does, like, put the desires of our hearts there for a reason. Yeah. And if being married and in a relationship is something you long for, that's amazing. Yeah. And then cultivate your faith. I think it was the verse of the day, like yesterday or something, and it was talking about the endurance that leads to the faith, that leads to the hope, that leads to the, and just know that God has it for you. Yep. But do it in His timing, and just be patient. And that can be. It doesn't mean that people who, and don't get fooled that people who are married just got it all. We got to do our own, like, faith, hope, endurance thing too, right?
That's a whole other journey.
And so just like, really cultivate God's voice. Yeah. So that when God says this is the person, or God says, be cautious. This is not the person, or this is only a friendship.
Right.
That God's hindsight's 20/20,
Yes.
and ours, when we're looking into all of that, it can be easy to kind of get fooled by some things.
Yeah, I love that. To kind of like wrap up what you were saying is like really being okay with like the season that God has you in, and not like, honestly, you have to surrender everything to God. You have to surrender all of your desires, all of your hopes, all of your dreams, give it to him, and he'll give it back to you. And something that I always do, like anytime I like meet someone, I always pray, and I'm like, God, if this is not the person, close the door, right? Like slam it shut. I am not done.
All the open doors no man can open, and closed doors no man can close.
Closing the door and the window and whatever else, right?
All the
because
things.
the enemy, right, because the enemy will try to distractions your way, and try to get you off course, especially when you are following God. And so, yes, that is so important, is like knowing God's voice and like making sure that you are walking in step with him, because the most important decision you're ever going to make after following Jesus is who you decide to marry. That will literally change the whole course of your life. I mean, when they're going through good times, you're going through that. When they're going through hard times, you're going through that. I mean, doing this work for 10 years, just how much relationships and partnerships affect people's mental health. Yeah. And so you don't want to be in the wrong relationship.
I think it's so important to say, just as we're wrapping this up too, like we've talked about coming from the place of being single. Yeah. We've talked about the place of coming from being married. But I also just want to say, for people watching, if you're widowed, if you're divorced, like that's okay. Yeah. Like those are painful seasons. Yeah. And I think what's great about this whole we started this whole session talking about sex. Yeah. But really, we just keep landing at relationship.
That's right.
And so I just want to encourage you to walk those seasons well. Mm-hmm. They are hard. Yeah. They are painful. They come with their own journey. Find community around you. I was widowed. I know what that feels like. I've walked that for 20-some years with other women and men who've been widowed and widowers. Mm-hmm. And I walked it with, my husband was divorced. Mm-hmm. And he's walked that journey. And so whether you're single, whether you're widowed, whether you're divorced, whether you're married, none of that comes easy.
That's right.
And just knowing God's voice, pulling into obedience, and the journey God has for you, God always rewards that. Amen. He always rewards that.
He does. Yes. Well, thank you so much for this conversation. Yes. So good. Guys, don't we just love Kelsey? She is just a wealth of knowledge. I really appreciate you guys joining us on this episode, and we'll catch you in the next episode.